Hello, seventh graders. How is everyone doing? Hope you're doing well. Let's look at the Unit 8 World War II vocabulary. We're going to be working on World War II for about 3.5 to 4 weeks into early May, and then we'll wrap up the year with the Cold War, Civil Rights Movement, and globalization. So we got a few units left, but this is maybe some of your favorite one. Maybe it will be one that you really enjoy the most, being towards the end of the year. So you should have this chart in front of you, or shared with you on Google Classroom. There's 15 words that you're going to do for homework, and hopefully this video helps you better learn about these words a little bit better. Okay, so inflation is the first word, and there's a lot of inflation going on in the United States, but also over in Europe because basically the economies are suffering in the 1930s, nationwide, worldwide, really. And what that means is that prices go up. So that means the money that you have cannot go as far as it did before. Okay? Think about $1 now compared to what $1 used to be. $1 used to buy you a lot more than it does now. That's inflation. And it generally happens, right? But look at this chart. You can see what's going to happen around World War II and after with inflation. Okay? Foreign policy is the guideline for dealing with foreign nations. So the U.S. is going to kind of adapt its foreign policy during this time period as to go from isolationist to more of a involved in European affairs situation, and that's going to be kind of the case from that point forward. We're never going to really be isolationist again. So that's foreign policy. Remember, when you're creating your own definitions or synonyms or examples, do not just rewrite the definitions in a different way. Try to come up with a way that's going to help you remember it. An example or a synonym might help you better than just rewriting the definition. And also, your images should be your own, not the same as mine. They should be different. Okay, so here's dictatorship. That's where one person or one group, one political party it could be, but it's really led by one individual, has absolute power. You might hear the word totalitarian government, total control. And that's a dictatorship. And here's some examples: Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini and Mao and so on. Okay, so fascism. Fascism is going to be the Axis powers. You got your Italy, Japan, and of course Nazi Germany. And it's really where they put, again, above the individual, nation and race, very nationalistic, very ethnocentric, eliminating political opposition through violence and through capture and things like that, and forcing people to flee. And then severe economic and social regimentation. Everything is very class oriented. All right. Communism is different. This is more of an economic system where there's really no private property and a single party owns the means of production. It's not meant to necessarily have a leader, but there's no way without that one party system that it would kind of work politically. So it's kind of a political and economic system combined. And basically, you don't own private property. The government owns it. The state owns it, they say. That's communism. Appeasement is this idea that what's going to happen in Europe is that they're going to kind of give in to the fact that Hitler wants to build up the military, even though he's not supposed to. And he wants to start expanding Germany's borders and taking lands that used to be part of Germany. And other European nations don't really want to go to war at this time. They're still recovering economically. So they kind of just let it happen. They appease to please, right? They just kind of give in to the demands, if you will. All right, so that shows you Hitler over there, an image taking over, creating war, creating a wartime situation. Lend-Lease is going to be an act or a law passed in the United States that's going to allow us to provide aid to those who we think is vital to American security. We're gonna lend things or lease things to other nations, and there's going to be some kickbacks to help us. But lend-lease to our allies, which are at this time Britain and France and even the Soviet Union at this time. Not Germany, not Italy, not Japan. Island hopping, we're going to talk about when we get into the war in the Pacific. This is a strategic move of Allied forces and American forces to try to conquer lands that Japan has taken and eventually work our way closer to Japan. The word invasion is just where You move onto enemy territory, you invade them, you send troops, you send military supplies with the purpose of either winning a battle, aiding an opponent, and eventually, hopefully, winning the war. That's invasion. Remember, you can pause this at any time, and you should be coming up with your own unique pictures. All right, turning point. It's when the kind of things start to change from one way to the other. Things that were going well for one side ultimately start going well for the other side. We saw in the Civil War, for example, the turning point was, the Battle of Gettysburg. The Revolutionary War, the Battle of Saratoga. Well, here we're going to talk about Stalingrad and the D-Day invasions and how those were turning points in the war. Internment camps. During the World War II, there was a large distrust of Japanese Americans during the war. And part of that might have been because of, the fact that of what happened with Japan. Japan had invaded Pearl Harbor, and there was a sentiment in America that, that Japanese people couldn't be trusted. Now, this doesn't mean it was right. I definitely am not. It definitely was not a right way of dealing with things. It could have been done differently, but what happened was they were relocated to these work camps, and basically as a way to kind of keep an eye on them. And it was ordered by the president. So this is a law that's going to be passed. And obviously there's been situations now where we're paying reparations to Japanese Americans. I think it was under Ronald Reagan's administration in the 80s. So this is definitely a low point in American history, but it happened during World War II. Anti-Semitism is a word that's prejudice against people of the Jewish faith. And this is going to be going on with the Nazis in Europe, in Germany, as they begin to detain Jews into concentration camps and exterminate, I think, over 6 million. Many flee Germany and come to the United States or come to other parts of Europe or other parts of the world during this time, the diaspora of Jews around the world. Okay. Concentration camps, again, I mentioned already. These were, work camps where ethnic minorities, especially Jews during World War II, were put in captivity, worked often to death, or ultimately, in many cases, killed in gas chambers. Okay. And then boycott, this is going to go in many different ways. In Germany, they were boycotting Jewish stores and Jewish businesses and so on. And then in the United States or in other parts of the world, many people were not buying Nazi-made goods, German-made goods. It's basically to refuse to buy something or support a certain business, to express your opinions, to prevent them to force you to accept other conditions. All right, that's a boycott. It's usually an economic strategy. The last word is liberation. It's to set free, and the liberation of Europe, the liberation of the Jews, liberation of the concentration camps is going to go on in 1945 when the war ends in Europe. And then ultimately the war ends in Japan through the use of the atomic bomb, which we'll talk about as well this unit. All right, so you can watch the video on the QR. Hopefully you can rewatch this video on the QR code on your assignment. You can it'll also be linked to Google Classroom, and turn this in by the due date. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.